We're doing a few different desensitizing things. Here I'm going to start with just walking around behind Castor, and then I'll do some desensitizing from the fence later on. So I'm trying to build up to where I can walk right behind him, and I probably could do that now. I just want to make sure I have all the pieces in place. So I'm staying nice and wide and making sure that he's okay with that. And I'm clicking as I go behind his tail, and then I'll continue walking and then give him his treat. So I'm just kind of breaking it down. So first I want him just to stand there, and then I want him to see me go behind him at a safe distance. Then I'm going to add in the touch because what I'll do later on or eventually is start walking toward his hip, touch him on the hip, and then walk behind him and continue with my hand like on his hindquarters the whole time, just like you would like a normal horse while you're grooming or something. And that's what I'm trying to just start doing here. And again, clicking while I went behind his tail and then going ahead and feeding on this side. And I'd like him to just kind of stand there a little bit more relaxed and not follow me as much, but that might just be him just being curious and not necessarily afraid. But that's something to look into, pay attention to their body language. So here I'm just doing a little bit of desensitizing with this stick. And what I want to do is start touching him with that as I go around. So I have a lunge whip, so I have plenty of space. See, now he's just confused. So I wanted to do is keep that on there like it would be my hand and then have him just stand there like that. That's perfect. So it wasn't a big deal. He was a little confused, and I just had asked him to stand and then set him back up and try it again. And that was very nice. I really like that. So then I can kind of put the two together. So he can see me going behind him and he can feel some touch. So really those are pretty good for me. I really like that. I could also probably put like have him back up to the mounting block or to a fence or something and then start just making sure that I can do that. Just kind of like I did in the beginning with that protected contact, just making sure that it'll be safe. Then I'm going to work on a little bit of desensitizing from the fence. And we've done some things. I'm just kind of playing with some different techniques and getting him used to coming up to the fence, which he's pretty good at because he already knew how to do that from his gait and all the prior work we've done. He's not super straight right here, but he's gotten the idea. So I'm really happy that he transferred those cues from the ground to the fence. Not all horses are going to do that. So you might have to get off the fence. You might have to be back inside the round pen and just make sure that they understand that sideways cue really well and then slowly build to outside the round pen and then on the first rail, second rail, and so on until they understand that cue means sideways regardless of your positioning. So really happy with that. I'm going to just do some desensitizing with the stick because then I can touch everywhere. I can make sure that he's okay with the whip itself and with being touched while I'm up there. And then I can go ahead and use my hands and just go ahead and touch him. So I like his response there, but pay attention to how much distance there is between you and the fence. So if he's constantly side passing when you ask, then he's stopping and leaving space. He's probably tense about whatever you're doing. Some part of it he's tense about. So that's something to look into. At that point, I might have just asked him to stop or been okay with him stopping a little bit away from the fence because I was using that stick. But do pay attention if your horse is continually doing that. So it's shedding, it's springtime when I did this video. So I'm just kind of using this opportunity to brush him, get a bunch of hair off, and scratch on him, and kind of have like a good experience for him. And he thinks I'm going to give him a treat on the other side, which is good. I want that interaction because I want when I get up there on his back that he's connected to me and he stays that way because some horses really have a hard time with that going from the ground to on their back. I really want him to know that it's the rules are the same. I'm just in a different position. So this is just that stepping stone for that. And I'm just kind of mixing up some padding that we've been working on that you saw the beginnings of with the protected contact, and he's really good with that. So I'm just kind of mixing it up and getting my hands on both sides of him and just playing around. So you might have to break all of these things down. So you'll see that with Atlas a lot more. I had to break things down a lot more. So he's a little worried about my foot there. I wanted to kind of just touch him on the shoulder and he was like, that's not great. So he moved away. That's okay. He's just telling me that he's a little worried. I'm going to see if he'll come back. There. That was really nice. I like that. So I got to pay attention that he's worried there. I'm just going to have him target my foot. So it took a step back. Instead of having me touch him, I'm going to have him touch me. So he's choosing if he wants to do that. He cannot touch my foot if he doesn't want to. That's okay. But I wanted to kind of work on my foot touching him and kind of getting my leg over a little bit. And I'm okay with just taking the time it takes and taking through all the steps. Since he's good with the whip and he was good with my hands, this is just kind of the next step. But as I was saying before, I'm gonna do some desensitizing above him. He's a little tight there. I'd really like his head and neck nice and level, that horizontal position, but it's okay. These are early lessons. I'm just gonna take that into account and kind of see where we're at. But with Atlas, I am going to break it down a lot more. He's a lot more worried about just being touched and having someone in a new spot and just about most things in general. So you'll see a lot more breaking down with him. There, I went ahead and touched him with my foot and he was really good. So the going back a step worked really well there. That was a nice example of that so that he could build up his confidence and it's not a big idea or big deal. Atlas would have been scared when that whip fell down there. So it's a different horse. Like I'd probably be a little bit more careful with Atlas until he kind of builds more confidence, but just being aware of those little things is important. So like with Atlas, I might want to taken that out and pulled it through the rails or kind of pushed it in front of him so that it's falling away from him, not toward him. So it looks a little bit less scary. But I really like where Castor is at here. And we did all this prep work before. We did this on the ground. I did this in protected contact, and he has good associations with like the fence or the gate. So like this looks just like a gate. It's just a panel. He doesn't know the difference. It looks identical to him. So he has so many good experiences and associations next to it with all the other stuff I had been doing. This stuff really came fairly easy. And so then with Atlas, I didn't do nearly as much because in the beginning he was a lot easier to just interact with. Castor was more um like he wanted to be really close and he wanted to throw behaviors and he had to learn how to take the treat and so that's how he ended up in protected contact, but it really helped and made how I trained him just a little bit differently than Atlas. So it was just interesting process for both of them. So like we kind of ended up with the same results, but I took different ways to get there. So but I really like all of this and he's getting close. I mean, he's letting me stand here like where I would be nearly where I would be while mounted and like I'm kind of deliberately like dusting off my hands kind of loudly. This looks really nice. Um, and you can see the progression of my boots. Like he touched my boot, my boot touched his shoulder, my boot went over his back, like all the progressiveness there. But you'll see me like when I'm dusting off my hands or just kind of doing something a little bit longer, a little bit more deliberately, just on purpose to get them used to it. That's just like what I've been doing the whole time I had them. Just like the first summer I had them, it was shooing off flies and moving around and like having a scratch or something like that. Just to like get used to me moving. It's just like when you get on the saddle for the first time, you don't want to stand there or sit there and just not move. You want to make sure like the horses are fine with you moving. That's just a part of it. So I really like that. That looks pretty great. Making a lot of progress.